Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the webinar called The Process of Bringing Your Business Online. So when you start thinking about the world today, there's something we all know, and that is there's a lot of change that can happen in a small time. And in fact, if you're not ready to change, then you're possibly not ready to keep on going at all when it comes to business. So the other thing we've learnt is that if you're not well prepared to be online, perhaps you can't actually continue business. We used to think, a lot of us, that, well, if we couldn't do it face to face, we couldn't do it at all. We used to think, a lot of us, that if people were working from home, then they just wouldn't be working. They'd be doing their own stuff. And we used to think that if we weren't prepared to transact online, then, well, it didn't matter because we could do it face to face by cash, or we could do it with a card at the EFTPOS machine. But what we've learned is that that's not necessarily the case. There aren't all that many places where you can keep on doing even just a simple thing called cash. Go to a supermarket and read the signs where they say, pay with card if you can. So to be in business, we need to think how online, when online, which aspects of our business shall I do online? What does that mean that I need to do? So today we're going to look at the sort of things you need to ask and the sort of things you need to do in order to bring some or all of your business online. Of course, doing that, bring it online, can have some unusual impacts for you and for your business, you personally and your business, as well as for your staff. And it certainly has something to do with what happens for your clients. So let me introduce myself. I'm someone who really believes in business owners doing business their own way. Now, of course, that means that they may choose to do it in a way that doesn't help them out. And we know just recently that some of us have had to either be in business or not be in business, a horrible choice. Even so, I think that it's really important that business owners are informed about their choices. They have data, they've worked out what they're going to do, they choose what they're going to do, they set priorities and they move forward. In fact, that's what I love doing. So today we're going to talk about some of the things that I talk about with people when they say, I need to go online. Now, our classic business goal, we want to forge ahead. We think we can be innovative. And we think as business leaders that we can guide our business through the rest of the year and beyond. We can succeed. Now, I'm thinking I agree with you. But let's go on and look at a small business here in Darwin. Now, I'm in Darwin, so I tend to like to go for Darwin examples. So I'm going to start out with one that's quite close to home for me. And in fact, this business is the business where I get my hair done every 6 weeks or so. So I thought I'd tell you a story of a business that is already online and has always been online. Interesting that. And what happened because of COVID. Now, this business here is called Randy Florendo Hair. Randy is a very small, dynamic Filipino hairstylist. He's been in Australia and, in fact, in the Northern Territory for about 13 years. He's actually worked with the best hairdressers in Australia at various times. And about 5 years ago, he decided to start his own salon. Now, here's a classic hairdressing business. He's got a small salon, as you can see. He has, I think, 3 hair stations, 2 hair washing stations. Funny thing is, his business is in a business that has absolutely no walk-by traffic, not a skerrick. In fact, it's hard to get a park around there. There are lots of residential buildings, but people get into their cars and drive to other places. So how is he a thriving business? He's often been told, I'm sure, you ought to have a website. But he doesn't. Well, he sort of does. He has a Facebook site. And Facebook is, of course, on the web, and it's very much a website. It's just a website with lots and lots of rules, but he doesn't have one of those websites that most of us think of, one which is specifically for his business, built on some other tool hosted somewhere else. So the question he often has presented to him is, why haven't you got a website? As we go through this presentation, we're going to ask some questions, and by the time we come to the end, I'm going to come back to Randy Florendo here and answer the question, why haven't you got a website? Shouldn't you have a website? Before we get going, I just want to point out that today's session is a webinar. That means you're in mute. If you'd like to ask questions, please feel free, but you'll need to do them via the chat. The session's being recorded, and you can definitely ask questions and have them asked towards the end, and we might find some points in the session where we can do that. And I'd like, first of all, though, to make sure you know how to do it. Many of us are aware of Zoom as a meeting tool. You might be aware that when it's a webinar tool, it just has a slightly different menu bar. You get to it the same way. You put your cursor or that little arrow thing onto the screen that you're looking at. If you wiggle it a bit, you should get a black menu bar, and you'll be able to see there somewhere that you can put your hand up. Now, if you can't see the put your hand up sign, please find the ... more and look for the instruction there. So to test out whether or not you know how to use your menu bar, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd really like you to answer. And our producer, Jack Cameron, is going to count it up and give us an answer as to what proportion of us answer yes to this question. So when you raise your hand, you're answering as yes. And my question is going online something you feel your business must do now or soon? So please raise your hand if going online with your business is something you feel you must or do now or very soon. How are we going, Jack?
All right, so we have about 50, 60% of people raising their hands.
Great. I think that those 50 or 60% of people are probably right on the money. The degree of putting your hand up for yes is possibly, well, I want to do it at some time, but not necessarily right now, or I'm already online, might be the people who didn't put their hands up. So let's go on to, if you do want to go online, is this truth? Is this what you're thinking? I don't know the first thing about being online. I'll have to get someone else to set it up because I don't know anything. Or, wow, it's going to cost me big bucks. Especially when we have the COVID effect, any of those questions or those situations are ones that might stop us going online. Lots of businesses have seen huge changes in their prospects. Lots of businesses now know that going online is absolutely interesting, if not absolutely must do. We've heard lots and lots of successes in the press. But then you listen and you think, oh, boy, they did a lot of stuff. How on earth did they do that while they were applying for JobKeeper and fixing their tax, improving their income? Or what about my staff? They don't know anything about the internet, and I can't have them working from home because I don't have any equipment for them to work on. So the question that you need to address first, if you're going to go online, is what problem are you trying to solve? So it's necessary to step back, get past all the hype, get past all the I wonder, I'm worrying, what if the borders open, which they have, and we start getting people with lots of illness and we have to shut down again. Those things are at the moment clouding many people's minds, and I want you to put it aside for the minute, and I want you to focus in on what problem are you trying to solve? Now, probably you've got something in your mind right now. Feel free to type in what problem you're trying to solve so that Jack and I can know what we're talking about too. But really, there's got to be a way to break this down a bit. Try to work it out. Where do I look? There's so many things I could do. So let's go to the business lineup of things that where there might be places you want to solve a problem. So one of the folks here has typed in, I've got a basic website, but I'm looking to launch an e-commerce site. Very good. If I go into the next one, which is the lineup, we'll be able to place what you're trying to do into the business lineup. So as business owners, we tend to think about things from our point of view. It's most important to think about how you transition from a physical business to being online. You need to think forward to what changes would I need to make if I didn't do this face-to-face, I only did online, or what changes would I need to make if I was doing it both online and face-to-face? At what points in my business would I need to make some change? Now, this lineup we have here is mainly, if you like, suitable for a service-related business. It's about the capabilities we need rather than you do this, then you do that, then you do this, then you do that. It's the capabilities we need. You can modify this for your business, but I suggest you find 4 or 5 major things that you have to have done in order to function. So if you're someone going to go to e-commerce, you might change doing the job to packing and delivering the products, picking, packing, getting delivery done. If you're doing an online e-commerce site, you might actually be doing the get paid before you do the picking, packing and delivery. It doesn't matter. You can push and pull these, but make them very high level and think about them just as categories of capability that you need in a business, whether it's online or offline. Remember, we haven't made the decision yet about whether it's going online in its entirety. So what is getting found? Now, getting found is stand in the shoes of the customer and there's something I need, there's something I want, there's something I want to do. Where can I find someone who'll do it for me? That's the getting found. You want them to find you. You also want them to come back. So you might also be in this section of getting found, you might want them to be able to get back to you because they've heard of you, but they want to be able to get back to you. The next one is the getting booked. If you're delivering a service, so say for instance, you're delivering counselling or you're delivering an advice process or you're delivering learning online, then you'll need to get booked to do it, to go out at a time or have them come to you or set up a Zoom meeting or some such. If you're doing the job, this could be delivering physical products or providing a service as we've just described. It might be making online learning materials available. It might be coaching or managing meetings or delivering conferences online. The getting paid bit used to be simple. People paid by cash and then they paid by check. Oh, wait for it. Not too many people do that anymore. But then we have the FPOS machine. Then we have to be able to say, what if I'm actually not there? What about if you've heard them before, card present versus card not present transactions? So, well, you can't tap the card because you're actually somewhere else or you're on the web. Those things all make a very big difference. The other problem we have is that quite often we need to be able to be paid in more than one way because that's what the customer wants. And then last but not least, you might be doing the books. That's where your accounting package comes in, your Xero or your MYOB. It might be that you need some version of interaction between your banking accounts and your accounting system. You might need some interaction between your customer relationship management engine and your accounting system. Or you might actually want data so that you can make decisions about what to do into the future. So this is the lineup. When you're about to go online, one of the first things you need to do is to look at what you've got now. Now, most of us are to some degree either in a digital solution or online already. We don't tend to think about that way because we tend to think of online as like all or nothing. It's not all or nothing at all. In fact, most of us will have some degree of online. At the very minimum, we're likely to have, if you have a physical shop, you might have a Google My Business website. You might have your own website. You might have a Facebook for Business site. I hope you're not doing your business out of your personal profile. If you are, please think about changing that. And then on top of that, you might be using Instagram. You might be using Instagram stories. Who's to know? But in some way, you are on the net. You really want somebody, or online, you want someone to find you. This is where the search engines and SEO and all those things come in. In the getting booked space, you might be like a caravan park I work with in Catherine called Manbaloo Homestead Caravan Park. Part of their business is actually getting bookings. And you think they'd have an online booking system. Actually, they do not. And it's a conscious choice. That is because they like to make sure that if they book someone into a particular site and they want to extend, they can stay there. And they've worked out that if they talk with people, they can match up the website, the person's booking to the place they book them. They can make sure they've got that personal connection early in the piece, and they're more likely to generate loyal returning customers, because most of their customers are part of the Grey Army. So what you've got already could just be a physical book, although I suggest you back it up electronically, and I have suggested that to many of my customers. Or it could be that you've got an online booking system, like you might just be using your Outlook calendar or your Google Calendar. That's fine. Then you're down to the doing the job. Could be that you have a piece of software that does all of that. There could be a salon-based software, for instance, like Randy O'Hare's got. And then the next one is the getting paid, and the last is the doing the books. I suggest you work out your version of those 4 or 5 major capabilities and write down what you use in each space. Can you see how I've made some of those boxes longer and wider? That's because, say, for instance, your business website, and in our example there, it's certainly how you get paid, how you get found, but it might also have access to your online booking system or your online calendar from the website, and therefore it's part of getting booked. It's one of the confusing things about going online is applications can do more than one thing. I'd like you to seriously think about how to map what you do now. Now, what's next? When you're thinking online, the next thing is to think about, where is your hotspot? Where is your business hurting the most? There is actually the old adage that says, if it ain't fixed, ain't broke, don't fix it. It's quite true. Sometimes you can do things more effectively if you change the way you do them. But you certainly want to use what's hot to decide where to focus your attention when you're going online. So maybe your problem is that lots of people look at what you have, but they don't actually buy. Well, then maybe what you want is an e-commerce system, a shopping cart at the end for the buy, but something that shows off all your stock or all of what you offer. Maybe you need that, and maybe you need follow-up emails, the equivalent of the unfinished shopping process that often is built into carts, where they say, you know, you're looking at this, well, would you like that? Or maybe what you need is the upsell equivalent. They looked at this, you might also like that. Other people who looked at that liked this. That sort of thing might actually build your volume. Maybe that's your hotspot because you're not getting enough sales. They look, but they don't buy. Maybe keeping in touch is your problem. Maybe you've got a large set of customers, and really people who've bought from you before who have a good experience are a really good source of repeat custom. But maybe you're not keeping in contact with them and you're losing that opportunity. Maybe that's your hotspot. Maybe you need to be paid up front or on the spot, but your business is not big enough, or else you don't like the fees that goes with becoming a merchant with a bank, and you need a different payment system. Or maybe you actually need to go from only doing your business face-to-face to being able to do it online. So I'm going to just walk through an example of that. Someone who was impacted by the recent COVID event. As you know, gyms got closed. Now this business here, Wellness for Life, She actually started her business in 2013. She was online in 2013. One of the first, using Facebook, having a big following, and using email-based timed learning materials and learning support materials. Now, as time went by, what she did was decide that she might focus more on face-to-face, and particularly since she moved to Darwin, and she has now both herself as the main nutritionist and expert trainer and a small team at one of the gyms. Now, as we came into COVID, it looked a bit bad. People started to feel a bit bad about coming to the gym. Numbers went down. And then they said, oh, you can't operate in a gym anymore. Close the gyms. So for a very frantic 2 weeks, Sarah and the Wellness for Life team went and looked at outdoor gyms and outdoor training, and then restrictions got even worse. And what they had to do was go, as you can see at the bottom right, they went to online. Now, fortunately, Sarah already knew about this, or knew how to do it, but she suddenly had to get to live boot camps. I have never seen anybody do boot camps for 3/4 of an hour at the rate she does without ever getting short of breath, being able to talk the whole time. Boy, she looks good. It's exhausting, and you need a different way of keeping on with this. However, as she went into this, we come back to our lineup. It wasn't getting found that the problem was the problem. It wasn't getting booked that was the problem. She actually has a system that does all that. It was actually the doing the job bit. And it wasn't being able to do it. It was actually being able to service the number of clients she needed in a period of time that didn't mean she was working many, many, many hours, 7 days a week. So what's the business hotspot for Sarah? For Wellness for Life, they need to find a way to deliver the online services and follow people up, so a customer relationship management tool. And they also need internal task reminders. So-and-so has been assigned the job of doing X. 2 days later, has that job been done? Particularly as some of the people doing those jobs are not in Darwin. So it's not the main tool, it's the back-end processes. So come from hotspots, you need to think 2 things, your processes and your digital tools. You also need to balance up what's convenient for you as a business and what your customers prefer. And I think that is something we really need to talk about at a little bit more length. So hang on a minute. Where are your customers all in all this? Very early in the piece, you need to work out what's going to make it so customers are prepared to interact with you. Your online is not about just your business processes. It's about whether your customers are prepared to engage with it. So there's the customer journey and the customer view and your customer service and touch points. The business view, when you're talking about going online, in fact, it's actually even more important than when you do these things face to face. The reason for that is that if you've got a customer in your shop and you can see that they're kind of muddling around and don't quite know what they're looking for, or they've got a frown on their faces, well, wait for it. You can see the frown. And if you've got good customer service and you've trained up yourself or your people to actually find a way to interact with those people, then you'll likely pull this through to a sale. However, if you cannot see them and they cannot see you, then that personal touch has gone. It amazes me how many times I get businesses with whom I work, or business owners with whom I work, saying, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Makes it easy for me, but wow, that's quite hard if you're the customer. That's the stuff you have to watch out for. In fact, even more, one needs to understand the connection between emotion and the buying. Emotion and the staying and doing that course so that they actually finish, so they actually get their result, so that they actually get the service that you promised them. Well, if there's no good emotion, what's the effect? There's actually some research done by Forrester in 2019, which I read about. It says, consumers are highly influenced by emotion and a single experience. In fact, Forrester says that 40% of consumers have a high willingness and a very high ability to shift their spend rapidly when they have a poor experience. In the online world, they can also very quickly be giving you a bad review. Now, of course, you can handle bad reviews. However, that customer experience, their emotion, their response to how you deal with them, how much you understand them, and how much you own any problems and deal with them, that can make a very big difference in your online sales world. Now, of course, there's no point at all in doing business if no one buys. It does make me surprised sometimes how many people think that if they provide the service, then someone will buy it. Well, actually, that's not the case. If you put a cafe in a back block somewhere and there's no office workers and everything else around it looks pretty bad, then you'd better have very low prices, because you're going to be looking at the people who happen to come by you. You better have very low expenses, because they're the people who come and buy are the people who just happen to go by you. This question here is very important. If you make or create or facilitate something, then you'd better understand who's the person with the dollars who's going to buy. And are they buying for themselves? Or are they buying for someone else? And last but not least, where do they go to buy? So I would say to you that this is the beginning, the very, very beginning of your marketing strategy. In fact, remember, you ought to be thinking about your target market before you think about selling. If you've already got a business and you're going into an e-commerce site, then this is going to be very important. Just because you've got a website doesn't mean to say anybody will even look for it, or let alone buy from it. You're going to have to work out where your customers are and shove them to your e-commerce site. Now, we've just been talking about it as if you just know. Well, actually, there's a lot of research that goes into this. And I would suggest that your research is the key, again, another key to success in taking your business online. So you first of all need to answer that question, where are your customers? Where do they go to buy? Where do they go to find out? We used to go to Choice magazine to find out about the best fridge. Where do they go now? And how do you work out that for your industry sector? So in this, you will find that there are various analytics sites and trusted reporting organizations from which you can get information. You can also go to the online marketing tool you're talking about and thinking about, say for instance, Etsy, and you can go and see what they say is their customer base, what they do to attract people there. And you can go and look at people's examples. You can even go on and see yourself who's already on there, and maybe even contact some of those business owners and ask how they're experiencing things. They might not want to talk to you, but hey, face-to-face, or rather person-to-person communication is a mighty good way to gather data. The other way to go is to think about talking to your industry group. Say, for instance, if you're in real estate, go find REI in your state. If you're looking at older people, go speak with COTA, the Council of the Aging. Go speak to any other organisation, so the Association of Independent Retirees, and ask them. Those are both, by the way, national organisations. And I'd go look for them, ask them questions, see if they've done any reports, look on their website. They usually are very kind and publish them. So while we're talking customers, there's another essential aspect to going online. You really need to think about your staff. If you've got people who have always done things face-to-face or in the physical world, They may well be the most important to your business, but very scared about being anything online. They might use Facebook for their family, but go and get orders off a tablet and then get it right and then mark they've picked the right thing and send it the right place. You've really got to think about training, how you're going to ease people into it. In fact, when you're looking at anything, look at whether that piece of software is something you think you can help your staff use. Is it too confusing? Can you really do it? Don't believe the salespeople. The other is capacity. If you're going to shift from being face-to-face to being online, you might actually have to have more people or a service on the answering all the queries you get, because response time becomes part of people's experience, their emotional attachment to what you're doing. So if what you do is you want to go and book at the tourism agency and they haven't been able to expand the number of people they've got doing something, and yet they've got double or triple the people asking questions, you've got a capacity issue and you'll need to think through that impact for your business. We're not into the IT yet, please note. You also need to think about where people are going to be. Are they going to still be in a factory? Are they going to be in your shop but doing different things? Are they going to be working from home? Have they got the equipment, the hardware, the networking, and the security implications? So, options for going online. So now we've gone from making the business decision to thinking the customer, thinking the staff perspective. Now let's look at the digital solution perspective. You'll need to think through which function you're going to do where. Is the answering the phone for your online training activity going to be done by staff members who are in their own homes? So which function is going to be done where? And then the actual online training is going to be delivered via the web. If that's the mix, or whatever other mix you choose, what is the digital solution you're considering and what does it do best? So first thing to do, what does the digital solution do best? And then think about what else it does. But what's it really about? Look at that and see whether there is a strong match. The other thing to do is to say, have I got anything already that I could use to do that for now? If you've got to do online bookings, can you use Outlook for the moment with someone on the phone doing the bookings into a shared calendar rather than creating an online calendar, because that's not the thing that's hurting the most at the minute? Or are you going to actually look at an end-to-end option, which is available in many things? They do everything from being your front-end website to following up with clients you haven't paid. But that shift is actually quite a big one for a business. Or will you actually think more about a number of pieces of software which each have a key capability that you need, and working out how to integrate them or make them work together, either with people doing the matching processes for beginning or actually literally getting them integrated by an IT specialist. So as I said, you need to think your industry. There is industry-specific software. If you're running a salon, there are 4 or 5 that you can choose from. You need to look at the size of your business. If there's only you, then you'll be making different choices than if you've got a team of 10 tradespeople who are going to people's homes and cleaning their air conditioners. You'll need to think about the size of your business. You'll need to think about your staffing, the skills, the number. You'll need to think about where every job is done. You'll need to think about your cash flow. It's amazing how quickly various pieces of software can mount up and right away in terms of cost. So you need to keep an eye on the whole cost. And more importantly, really, you need to know who's going to actually use the software, as in make it work for you, set it up. Who's going to manage the digital tools? Is that somebody in-house? Is it you? Could be. Often it's a good idea to start with. Or you're going to bring someone in which case you're going to have to work with that service provider to make sure it works the way you want it to work. I thought I'd just quickly show you a commercial tool set, or rather talk about it. This article is about a real estate agent up here in Darwin who through COVID managed to continue getting good sales. Obviously, she wasn't selling just any old property. She was working with the owner to sell a high-end property in a desirable place in Darwin, in a place where nobody really could come to look at it and buy it. So that brought to mind, their success brought to mind, what do you need to think about if you're in property? And would you believe it? They actually have a name for, apologies, they actually have a name for the type of software. It's called property tech or prop tech, amazingly enough. And they reckon that Australia is leading the way in prop tech. 61% of companies operating within this sector are actually focusing on tools that can be used in property. Half of these properties are operating in the business to consumer, think realestate.com. However, there are many that are in the back trying to make it easier for property managers to manage and for real estate agents to sell. So for instance, there are tools now that deal with digital auctions. There are tools that do virtual property inspections. There are also virtual contracting tools now. These things are shifting. So depending on your industry, it's a really good idea to be up to the minute with what it is that can be done, and don't buy old technology. Don't buy something that helps you do what you used to do. On the other hand, don't let your IT tell you how you must operate. So leading into that, functions. What does that piece of software, whichever one it is, at whichever part of your business you are talking, what does it do versus what you need? As I said, bit of a balance here. You don't really want a piece of software that helps you do what you always did in the past, because we're pivoting our businesses into a new world, or into at least a parallel capability of face-to-face and online. So you'll need to think through what you want to be able to do, and then look at the piece of software that you're thinking about, or the pieces of software that you're trying to think about, and work out how they do it, what they do. Work out a balance between the two. It actually takes quite a bit of looking. A snap decision in this pot is possibly not a good idea, because you're going to live with it for a long time. You need to think about ease of use for your customers and for your staff. If it's really hard for customers to work out how to book, then it's not doing its function very well. If you do have a website and people come to it, you really need them to be able to see prices and how to book or how to buy right from the front page. It needs to be very obvious that they can book and that they can buy, if that's the action you want. From your staff's perspective, it needs to deliver to them in a way they understand and a way they can access quickly what it is that you need them to do. So if they've had someone ring up and inquire about an appointment, then the person who's going to ring them back and set up that appointment and do the booking in your paper-based booking system, if that's what you need, or in your online booking system, if that's what you prefer, then you'd better make it easy for that staff member to know that they need to do something, to do it, to take the action, and to record that they've done it, so that you as a business owner know what's happening. The next one is licensing costs. It's a very interesting thing how each piece of software licensed approach is different. Some licensing goes from how many seats. You can have all the functionality, but if you have only one person plus an admin person, it costs you this much. And if you have up to 5 people, it costs you that much. And if you have up to 20 people, it's that much. And give me a call if you have more than 20 people. Or maybe it's the other way. Maybe it's you can have as many seats as you like, but you can only have this much functionality at this much per month, or this much functionality if you do that. Of course, then there's the other side. We used to always buy our software and get it freehold, like a property. Trouble with that is you still have to pay council rates. In IT, the equivalent is you actually have to manage the upgrades and getting them onto your system. And you have to make sure that your technology will carry it. Whereas if you do software as a service, which means that much like, what can I think of? Say, for instance, something like PT Minder, which is a personal trainer software pack, happens to be the one used by Wellness for Life. That one is sold based on as many people as you like, as many calendars as you like for different PTs, but how many active clients have you got? Up to so many active clients is this much, up to so many active clients is that much. That costs so much per month. Then you need to add on, what else do you need to add on? Look at that whole licensing process. And software as a service means somewhere else is doing the upgrades, someone else is doing the updates, someone else is making sure the software is working, probably 24/7. The next thing you need to think about is integrations. So if you're already using something like Xero and you're about to bring in a software management tool, salon management tool. If you're trying to bring in a salon management tool, maybe you would want to think about whether that salon management tool actually talks to Xero. It's the sort of thing I'm talking about. The next you need to watch out for is there's some fantastic tools out there, but their support happens on during our night time. And if you want to actually talk with them during the day, then maybe that's not the right piece of software for you. Sometimes it doesn't matter. You'll need to think that through. The next thing is you need to worry about, and I mean worry about, the supplier's future. If they've been around for 6 months and there are only 2 people who know anything about the software, it is a higher risk that they're going to disappear than if they've been around for a bit longer, they've got a bigger base of staff, and they've got a client base that is of a certain size. The other thing you need to worry about is, are they continually updating the functionality in the tool? If they're not, I suggest you don't go with that tool. So we've talked through quite a few different concepts here. I would really like then to just summarize that. When it comes to going online, it's a good idea to build on what you know or have. Don't necessarily take a quantum leap from where you are to something brand new. And if you do, you really, really need to manage the crossover. The next thing is it's not necessary to do everything at once. So my advice to you is do as little as you can at any time in stages, but as much as you need to start getting the benefit you're after. So come back to our first question, what problem you're trying to solve. Use the what problem you're trying to solve and then set yourself smart goals and do as little as you can at each point, but as much as you need to start getting the benefit, the return that you need as soon as possible. And really do look at what's in right timing for your business. If you can, seems obvious, don't change your whole system in the middle of the busiest period of the year. We also talked early in the piece about whether it was all about all too expensive and that we really ought to watch out for what we're spending. Well, if you're a small organisation or if you're a larger organisation trying to spread into a new capability, it's actually really possible to get great functionality out of some of the tools which are either free or that you only pay when you use. So I've put up here a few examples. Facebook, it's free. The application is, apart from the fact that you've got to have the right devices and you've got to have a network connection, that's still there. So is Instagram, free. Facebook actually has some great functionality. Facebook for Business can be your website. You don't necessarily have to have a separate one. You can have a call to action on there like book now or contact me. Those things are the sorts of things you get on a website. You can give people information about what you do as well. There's also Google My Business. And Google My Business is coming closer to the idea of supporting not just physical businesses, but also businesses that do deliveries rather than having a front shop. And then there's Google Sites. It's amazing the functionality that's available on a free Google Sites. So what if you're after, if what you're after is just a bio for your business so that people know it really exists? Maybe you've got customers who think if there's no website, then they don't exist, and I don't use Facebook, so they don't have a website, I don't do business with them. You can actually do a lot with something that's free like Google Sites. The advantage of those tools is that they're already liked by Google search. If you have Google My Business, there are ways that you can make it so that people find you top of the game. Really worthwhile. You can also use Google Calendar. So if you're into booking, you can do it there. You've got Messenger if you want to go into Messenger. There are very many ways that you can do free business, and I seriously suggest you look at whether you can test what it is you're trying to achieve in that getting found, getting booked space. And by the way, there's analytics behind them as well, before you go buying a tool that you haven't got time to use. So we're getting to the end of what we want to talk through. I thought I'd go back to Randy Florendo here and answer that question that I posed at the beginning. Now, the funny thing is, you think a Filipino hairstylist and you think, wow, is he good at hair? Yes. But then you go on and say, is he good at business? There's a thing I would say to you, and I'd say that Randy is extremely good at business. He knows where his customers are. They're on Facebook, and they like communicating on Messenger. Most of his customers are from the Philippines, visitors or people coming into the Darwin. Wow, that's a big community here. There's a lot of power in word of mouth as well. His customers are much more comfortable with Messenger, phone and text than they are with email. But guess what? He does have his email, but he doesn't use it, except for business to business. So he doesn't even have one of the things the rest of us tend to consider to be absolutely essential. When I talk with him about whether he would have messages going out to people's email, he said, oh no, they don't use email, they use text. So if he's going to actually do a broadcast message, which he doesn't do very often, he would do it to text, not to email. He does have salon-specific software that does everything from manage his customer contacts to help him keep track of what dyes and etc. and what products they've purchased. It manages his appointments. It manages his stock, so he's got information for ordering. He does sales with it combined, and then he actually uses an FPOS machine for the actual transaction. And he uses appointment reminders coming out of his salon software. He only accepts cash and FPOS, not an online. Doesn't need to. And he keeps a very weather eye on capacity. So he's actually worked out that he does not need to do much in the way of advertising at the minute. He does none. What he does is he's very good at forward booking. He never lets you out the door without saying, when would you like to come back? And he also keeps the right level of activity to match where he's at the minute. And if he really wants to call out to customers, he can do it mainly by Messenger. So what's the answer to the, you ought to have a website for Randy Florendo Hair? The answer is number one, he does. It's called a Facebook business site. But when you start talking about an external website, he does not need one. He does not need Google My Business. I think he could, but he doesn't need to. And that's his answer. So I would like to pose this question. What's the best approach to going online? The answer is the one that suits your business, not what anybody else tells you. Get yourself into the driver's seat. Think through these issues that we've talked about today. Start talking with other people, but set yourself some timelines and make the move. That's all I'd like to present today, and we've got 10 minutes left for some questions. So I'd like to hand over to you. What would you like to know? you'd like to pose a question, please move your cursor or the arrow around on your screen and find the chat and type away. Have we got any questions, Jack?
No questions.
No questions. Anybody
Just
last
have one
call?
pop in. Just
Ooh.
have one pop in. What
Yeah.
are some of the better CRMs, email and marketing software?
Okay. All right. Well, this is a very interesting question. CRM, customer relationship management engines, there are a large number around. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. If what you're trying to achieve, for instance, is to manage a salon, then those can be treated as CRMs. So you would need to look at the salon systems that are around. Some of those, for instance, I'm trying to think, roll one off my tongue and it won't come. However, there are a number. What I would do to find that out is I would actually search based on, I'd say, CRM, and I'd put my industry. And I'd start digging in. I would also start looking at some commentaries. So there are groups that make looking at the comparison between CRMs, their business. So G2, the equivalence of choice, but in the IT world, I'd start looking at that. I'd certainly do things like talking with people in your industry and asking what they use. Some of the systems that are around include things like Infusionsoft and Salesforce. They are ones which are bigger, which probably cost you more per month, but are certainly focused on interaction, about turning leads into sales. You probably need to understand how they manage in the doing the business space, doing the job. That's where some industry specific ones are more relevant. So I'm going to say the better CRM systems are ones which actually pivot around a client record. And I would be very careful to go and look and say, do they keep a record around the client, or do they, like a system called Campaign Monitor, it actually does work exactly as its name says. You can have multiple campaigns, but you put individuals into campaigns. You don't add campaigns to a single client. I think you need to work that through as well. Those sorts of things will tell you whether they're better or they're worse. I hope that helps begin to answer your question. I'd need to look more serious at your industry, and I'm happy to do that if you would like to contact us a little later on. Any other questions, Jack?
Yes, there was. Hi, what is the difference between an e-commerce site and a landing page?
Okay, interesting question again, because the answer is, in a way, not much, but in a way, lots. Very confusing things they are. So let's start with landing page. Landing page is the place you land when you click on something. That's where you've landed. A landing page tends to be something that then pushes you off to do something else. So let me take a bit of an example. I don't know if you've ever been on Etsy, for instance. If you just put in etsy.com, and I think there's an .au, you land on a homepage. But that is not what stops, where you stop on a landing page for Etsy. Then you've got search function, you've got this, you've got that, and you go out into seeing like little landing pages for each business. And from there, you can see what it is that they actually have up for sale, and you can move on to the payment process. You can also create a separate landing page. And that landing page might be one where it's within your website, but it's not linked up perhaps to the menu structure, and you create that page. It has a URL or a link that you can use, and you can go across to, say, Facebook and post and say da 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 and buy here. So when you click on the buy here, the link takes you to that landing page, and that landing page might be a page about a particular product only. They tend, in that instance, to try to keep you confined. So it doesn't necessarily let you go to the rest of their website up front. It actually takes you to something they want you to do, something they want you to know about, and then some information and something they want you to do there, which might be click on this and buy, or download this item. And so landing pages, technically every web page is a landing page. It's somewhere where you can land, but functionally what it's about is confining your options and getting you to follow an action that you've already started from somewhere else. I hope that helps. It's definitely an interesting topic.
There was no more questions, Christine.
Thanks, Jack. Okay, well, we're about to close up. We've just got a few minutes. So I'm going to kind of summarize. Doing business online is actually a tool towards your success. I think that's worth keeping in mind. We tend to think about being online as an end in its own right. It's not. So for success, the first thing to do is to know why you're going online and use that know why, what is your why, to help you make choices. There are so many options out there. You've got to pick what's going to make a difference for you now. Address your hotspots first. Definitely think customer experience. No customers, no business. Bad experience, business, customer gone. I think that thinking the customer experience is vital to your going online concepts. Next, support your people to deliver. If that's you, be careful not to do too much at once. On the other hand, be careful to work out the real hotspot and address it. I like Randy Florendo's approach. He makes it so that he only has 3 places to look: Messenger, text, and he's got his phone to support his customers well. And the next is to be in the driver's seat. It does take time to be the person who manages what you're going to do as you go online. It's worth it. Don't let it consume you, of course, but be in the driver's seat. And if that requires that you go and find people to help you, please do. I just want to mention as we go past that there are lots of places you can get authoritative, qualified support. I would recommend to you the ASBAS program through which you came for this particular webinar. If you would like to, also you can go to the Entrepreneurship Facilitators Services program, which is also a free or subsidised, but free for Entrepreneur Facilitatorship Services program. EFS program gives you access to one-on-one sessions and also 2 workshops that are free, that are in this space. Get your business going and work out how to get your technology to move with it. And the next is, don't set and forget your online business. Monitor it and improve it over time. So thank you for attending, and we look forward to catching up with you again sometime soon.